I know one. Can it be that I hear what he's saying? Is there a reason why I'm still awake? And he says, I've got you written in a black book by the railroad track. You see, I know your fate. And I said, you've got to listen. I'm a songbird with a brand new track. You underestimate. I'll give you something to believe in. Burn up a basement full of demons. Realize you're a slave to your mind. Break free. Now give me something to believe in. Just give me something to believe in. Every day when I speak to the moon, pale as a ghost in the afternoon. Tragedy has a hold on my mind, but I can see the light between the lines. I said, you've got to listen. I'm a songbird with a brand new track. You underestimate. I'll give you something to believe in. Burn up a basement full of demons. Realize you're a slave to your mind. Break free. Now give me something to believe in. Promise me. So afraid I'm a slave to my mind. You give me something to believe in. I've got you written in a black book by the railroad track. You see, I know your fate. And I said, you've got to listen. I'm a songbird with a brand new track. You underestimate. I'll give you something to believe in. Burn up a basement full of demons. Realize you're a slave to your mind. Break free. Just give me something to believe in. Just give me something to believe in.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jesse. Sitting across from me is Jay Purcell, the founder of Signl Radio. And that makes this Roots to Grooves. You know it. Welcome. What's up? What's up, Jay?
What's up, everybody? Good to hear you here again.
Yes.
Another week.
Hyped. Who are we talking about? We're talking about
Hyped.
Young the Giant.
Yes.
Super cool band out of the USA. Started in 2004 in Irvine, California. We're doing alternative rock, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Very good indie rock. It's anthems, like big, pretty big stadium tracks even.
Yeah.
But they still retain this really cool low-key indie sound within there.
Yeah.
And they're really dynamic. And
Yeah.
they can get soft, they can get loud, turn up the energy, but also be very like kind of introverted as far as the music goes. And really just chill and introspective.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Initial thoughts?
Or bombastic as well sometimes. I listened to 3 of their albums so far. Their debut, their second, and I think some of their most recent album. Their second album, high energy for me. I would go out and tell everyone that's a certified banger.
Yeah.
That album. It's like high energy.
Mind Over Matter?
Mind Over Matter. It's high energy. It's definitely indie rock, and it's not like heavy, but it's just very like, it's just like a lot going on, a lot of ideas in all those different tracks, and I loved it. Yeah, I thought that was like, I was getting into it. I was just like working and listening to it, and I was like, I got to play this again, because with any music, listening to it the first time around hits you a certain way, but once you do a second, third, you start like having preferences for certain tracks and stuff like that. Like I'm not there quite yet with Young the Giant, but as you said, anthems, there's like a lot of like catchy things and sing-along moments in all of their songs and stuff like that.
100%. I think they just overall production of their music is very high grade. Good melodies, good hooks.
Yeah.
Like intricate guitar parts and melodies within the music and the instruments themselves, and they just create really cool vibes. And like you said, a lot going on sometimes, but I think it's done very tastefully. So I'm excited to talk about Young the Giant today because for all of these reasons that you're saying, I just think they have a really cool project, a really cool mindset, and obviously we're going to get into it. But where these guys are coming from, they're coming from around the world. One guy's from Canada, one guy's from
England.
Yeah, he's British.
Yeah.
Samir is the lead singer, and he's a
Indian family, right?
right. Yeah, no, I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, he's Asian. If you're from India, you can say they're Asian.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that
that's
right?
what we say in UK and Europe, but ever since I got to the US, Asian's a different thing.
Yeah, it does mean something
like-
a little bit different.
Yeah, but technically, yeah, it's still part of
But he's Indian.
Asia, yeah.
But just very cool. So these guys are coming from like kind of all over the world, different perspectives.
Yeah.
But sharing this love of music and they've created a really cool project called Young the Giant.
Right, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, they played big festivals.
Yeah.
I've seen them play at Marymore Park.
Oh, really?
That was a great
Yeah?
show.
When did you see them?
It was a few years ago.
Is did you, the first time you heard of them then, or?
I heard of them a couple of years before that, probably. They were in the zeitgeist. They were there. And one of my other ex-buddies of mine.
Ex-buddy? Well,
Yeah.
There's a story there, people. Ex-buddy.
We'll get into it later.
All right,
Yeah, there is a story. But we both liked Young the Giant, so they did this headline show, and we went to it, and it was very good.
Right.
Everything I could have hoped it would be. It sounds like their records.
That's cool, yeah.
Really high energy,
Yeah.
cool music.
Yeah.
The vibe was there.
Right.
So just like I really like Young the Giant. Like I'm a fan, low key, high key.
High key. Yeah.
Really good project all the way around.
Yeah. 5 members.
5 members.
Samir, as you said, on vocals. Gidia, is that his last name?
Yeah, some of these names are a little.
Yeah.
Gadia.
Okay. Jacob Tilley, I think he's a guitarist. He is from the UK originally. Eric Kanata. Payam. Oh, it's a difficult last name. Sorry. Deuce De. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys.
Dustada.
Yeah. And Francois Comtois, who is the Canadian member, well, I'm guessing, with a French name like that.
Right. I think so.
Yeah. And they've had a few lineup changes over the
Yes.
years from when they've started. There's a few members that are there now that have been there since the beginning. But
Another thing, just to jump off that, like at least 3 or 4 of these guys knew each other from middle and high school.
Right.
So it's
Yeah,
a really like a true friend group,
Yeah, yeah.
like really sharing music and just moving through this process together, which I think is cool.
definitely, yeah. And 1, 2, 3, 4 studio albums since 2010, all the way up to 5 now, is it? 5 albums? They need to update their. Someone needs to get on their Wikipedia and update that, because
And maybe that's our job these days.
or maybe something else strange is happening here. What is this Act 1 and 2?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think they released Act 1
Yeah.
as a project, and then
Yeah.
they released Act 2 as if they were like 2 separate EPs.
Oh, and then they got
and then
mushed
they
together.
merged them together as a full album.
Okay, yeah, because that came out in 2022. But yeah, people were not updating their Discogs or their Wikipedia, so I don't know.
I feel people are busy these days in this economy,
Got
Jay.
other things to do than worry about.
I better update my own Wikipedia.
Exactly, yeah. We don't have one yet. Anyway, by the way, listeners out there, if you want to help us out, write a Wikipedia page for us.
Yeah, that'd
for
help
Reach
us
the
out.
Grooves. Yeah,
We need that. We need that.
But yeah, I mean, and they've done a lot of stuff, like you said. They've toured the world. They've toured the US. They've done a bunch of TV shows in the UK and the States, probably elsewhere. VMAs. They've done what do they call it? MTV Video Music Awards,
Yeah.
VMAs, if people don't know what that is. Which was a turning point, I guess, for them at a certain thing. We'll talk about later on. But yeah, they've done a lot, and I haven't really heard of them at all. I think I might have heard the name. Like a lot of these rock bands that go around, indie rock bands, like I've heard the name somewhere at some point, and it's like in my head, but I don't know like the songs or...
Yeah, just not intimately familiar.
Yeah, and I did a very messed up thing that Jesse knows about, but we were supposed to record this episode last week, and you sent me Young the Giant, and I was listening to Young the Giant albums whilst researching There Might Be Giants. So I was like reading interviews of They Might Be Giants whilst listening to Young the Giant.
So confusing.
That was very confusing for me because I was like, it didn't... Like, it
Something
seemed
wasn't
to make
clicking.
sense.
Something wasn't...
Actually, everything clicked. It was all fine. I didn't notice until we got to the studio that I fucked up.
Jeez Louise.
But yeah. Anyway.
So we didn't record that episode last week.
But anyway, They Might Be Giants have an interesting story, so I'll say that. But
future episode.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, though, I'm glad this week I got my research correct, and I'm excited to talk about some of the things we found out about this group. But time for a track.
Yes, play. So we're gonna play something we have loaded up from one of their first releases. Is that right?
Yeah, from the debut album Young the Giant, Cough Syrup, a track you picked out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have much of a story other than this is one of the tracks I was introduced to Young the Giant. And I don't know, I heard it on the radio. It was a big track. Yeah. So these guys kind of came out of the gates with a strong presence. Yeah. Let's listen to the track.
All right.
Life's too short to even care at all. I'm losing my mind, losing my mind, losing control. These fishes in the
You are listening to Rooster Grooves with me, Jay Purcell, and Jesse Quigley. And that was Cough Syrup by Young the Giant from their debut album, Young the Giant, who we're talking about this week.
That's a cool track.
Yeah, that's a cool track. Catchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's what they do really well.
Yeah.
Strong energy, good melodies, good lyrics as well.
Yeah.
He's always talking about cool stuff and putting it in a cool way. That's easily digestible kind of thing. Easily understood.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I'm excited to talk about Young the Giant. Let's get into the early years.
Yeah, so formed in Irvine, California, 2004-ish, a little bit before then, I think, right, as well.
Yeah.
Initially weren't called Young the Giant. They were called the Jakes, right?
Yeah. So they were just straight up the same band.
Yeah.
And they just at some point changed their name. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
But they were the Jakes.
Right.
And even before then, I had mentioned these guys were friends in middle school and high school. So there was already the love and the bringing of the friends together was already happening.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the genesis of what this project ended up coming from.
Right.
So, as far as I know, I think they were in band and like, I don't know, jazz band or pep band or whatever in high school. They were all involved in music. I think I heard one of them talking about like they were going from middle school to high school, I think, and they didn't want to be like the nerdy band people. So they wanted to pick an instrument. I think it was how do you say his name? Payam. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Payam. Like they didn't want to. He's the bass player in the band, but so that's how he started playing bass because he didn't want to play like a stringed instrument where you have to bring your instruments in or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have even told this story because I don't know it well enough. But anyway, they were like kind of choosing their instruments. They were in band, but they wanted to be cool.
Right.
So these are just kind of the vibes for context.
And I do know how Jacob and Samir met. Jacob is from the UK originally, but his family moved to the US when he was 12 years old. And he said his first day of school when he was 12 years old, he met Samir at the same school. Samir invited him to play soccer. Jacob said he was very bad at soccer, but he played guitar or something. So they kind of knew each other from that way. But it wasn't until, because Samir was like in a band, covers band at that time. And he said he also kind of volunteered to do sound at like the school, like for like shows and stuff like that. So there was like a talent show once, and Jacob, like, I think solo, like went up on stage and was playing some guitar stuff. And Samir was like, oh, he's never seen, like, because Jacob had all the pedals and stuff like that and had a certain way. And, he just kind of knew at that point, oh, well, we both like music. We both play music. We should know each other kind of thing. And it's kind of how their relationship started.
Nice.
Two of the founding members, there were other founding members, but they were like, that's kind of how I know how they met. I don't really know about how the other members came to the fold, but it sounds like they were all like school friends, like you said, in band and stuff like that. Like,
I think it was kind of that scene.
Yeah.
Just young kids, teenagers figuring out that they love music and then they start doing it. Yeah. Basically. So as far as I know, they just started doing like band, like Battle of the Bands or acoustic nights. Yeah. In their hometown.
Yeah, I think they said their first. Well, because they had like two different bands, or some of the other members were in different bands, and I think when they decided to come together as the Jakes, they said initially it was a joke. Like the name is like an acronym apparently of everyone that was in the band, and Jacob said it was just basically a joke. They weren't really taking it seriously. I mean, they're teenagers in high school. They're playing covers, but they like did a few of their own original things. But yeah, they played a Battle of the Bands, which is their first ever show, and they said they ended up winning it.
Nice.
And he said that was like the kind of catalyst for them to like play more shows in the local area and just kind of continue. And it's kind of interesting. It's like they said that everything, even up until now, has just snowballed from that moment. It was just like a natural progression. It was like started as a joke to like them taking music more seriously and still not really like, I don't think like the fame or the celebrity part of it, but like the music itself like is a theme I think we'll probably end up talking more about in this episode. But like I think that was the thing that struck me, from the fact of being teenagers joking around to actually being like, oh, we have cool stuff here, and people were liking it. People are responding to it, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of seem to recognize that at a really young age. It seems like to me.
Yeah, everything seemed to progress pretty naturally.
Yeah,
Nothing seemed forced.
no,
or like contrived.
Yeah.
Or derivative. It just, they were meant to be Young the Giant.
right,
And so all this lined up for him.
yeah,
Because they loved music, I think, and then that's what they were going towards, and that's what they manifested basically.
yeah.
And when it all comes down to it, so they're in high school.
Yeah.
They're playing music.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, they kind of have this band, but at the time of graduation for high school, they end up splitting up. Not the band splitting up, but they all go to different colleges.
Right. Yeah.
So they all kind of separate a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think they stay together and they're still friends and everything, but they're doing different things.
Yeah.
I know the only thing I know is Samir dropped out of he eventually dropped out of Stanford University.
Right. Yeah.
To continue with Young the Giant.
I think Jacob did as well. I think he said he was 19 when he was at university, and he left or something.
I think they all basically dropped out of their respective colleges.
Because they recorded like a couple of early EPs that aren't really officially part of the Young the Giant's discography at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's one called Shake My Hand and one called This Is ... The Jakes.
This is the Jakes.
I found a Dropbox with this EP. Do you want to hear a snippet of this one track?
Give me a snippet.
I don't know what
Quick snip.
Don't know what we're getting into right now.
Let's explore.
And let's see.
Over me, I close my eyes, but I can see my mind is racing, heart pulsating. Is this what you wanted from me? Says, who do you think you are? Well, you think you're something.
That's enough.
Wow. I was thinking something was going to be a lot more rougher about that, but
yeah, very clean.
That was crazy. That was good.
You want to listen to the whole song? I think we have
post
different
the
ideas
link.
of what a snippet is.
I was just trying to get to the first chorus and then duck it out.
I thought that was the chorus.
I think it was leading up. It
We'll
was
never
like a
know.
pre-chorus.
There's a
chorus. I don't know. It's catchy though. Anyway,
But it sounded generally well produced.
That was cool. What You Gonna Say from This Is the Jakes.
Nice.
And that's kind of I don't know if it's an EP. Says it's an EP. It's like 9 tracks though. So and there's like
a long EP.
Another one, Shake My Hand, that is 7 tracks. But yeah, this is the stuff they were like putting out whilst they were like, high school, starting college, university, playing a lot of local shows, right? Doing that scene. And I was it's hard for me to pinpoint like in this research like what was a pivotal moment, like why did they drop out of college kind of thing, because it seemed like they weren't particularly maybe making too much money at that stage, but like
I'm not sure about that.
But there was a lot of interest from like listeners, I guess, or something like that. Like
I know. I mean, so they drop out of college and then I don't know. So, I mean, even just in the high school years and into college, maybe they were all in there was kind of a post-hardcore scene. I just want to paint this picture before we pass up this point in the narrative. And I think they were all in kind of other post-hardcore bands. Okay. And so locally in Irvine, there was already this kind of scene happening. And it's the same scene where Rage Against the Machine came out of, band called Thrice.
Right.
And those are two. Rage is obviously huge and Thrice is huge, but not
different time period, right? These guys are after like the Young the Giant, after Rage Against the Machine coming out of that scene.
I mean, the
Yeah,
scene
yeah.
existed with Rage Against the Machine and Thrice, and Young the Giant was teenagers.
Right. Okay.
And so they were in this scene, and they were in their own post-hardcore bands,
Okay.
just participating in creation of music and stuff.
Okay.
They go to college. This is just as far as I understand. They go to college, still loving music, and then they drop out of college to keep going. I think somewhere in there they got signed. Is the thing. That's the point, the catalyst.
Right. Yeah. To a big label, Roadrunner Records.
Yeah, and I think it was. I think his name was Joe Ciccarelli. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his right. Yeah. Is it Ciccarelli or Ciccarelli? Look up that.
So, you're talking about the producer.
Yeah, but so I think the story that I understood was the Jakes were playing a show at a local venue.
Yeah.
And Joe Ciccarelli walked in and saw their show and saw what they were doing and kind of recognized what they were trying to do with their music,
right?
With the styling of the music and how it was alternative and it was anthemic. Is that
anthemic? Yeah,
that's
a word.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
As far as I know, I think it's a word.
Anthemic. And so I don't know if I've ever used that word before, but he liked what they were doing.
Yeah,
he liked the Jakes.
Okay.
And so he was like, "Yo, I want to work with you guys."
Yeah.
And so then he did. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in there, I think Joe Ciccarelli has some, his fellow cohorts in the industry.
Yeah.
He got hooked up somehow. I was like, "Here's some guys I want to work with. Let's sign these guys.
Yeah.
And let's do this."
Yeah. So if people don't know, Joe Ciccarelli, producer who's worked with the Shins, the Strokes, Saints of Valerie, which I haven't heard of, but I think it kind of helped Young the Giant as a band, being in LA and doing those shows around there, because I know they were still like not playing to anyone. Like I heard Samir say they played the Viper Room, Whiskey A Go Go, like all these legendary venues, but there was no one there.
I think that would have. I think it was the Viper Room.
Okay.
Now that you say that, I think that's a famous location down there.
Yeah.
Venue, and I think that's where Joe was.
Strip. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been down there. I was gonna see a show. I was speaking to the lady bouncer outside, and I was like, "Who's playing tonight?" She reeled off 3 or 4 names. I hadn't heard of any of them. I was like, and it was $50 to get in. It's I don't know if I want to pay that much.
That's
to
a high
see
bands
bands I haven't heard of.
Yeah,
but it was a legendary venue, so I don't know. It's
Did
maybe
you do it?
worth. No, I didn't. I was with 2 other people. It was would have been $50 each. And I don't think they were down for do that. I would have if I was by myself. I would be
for sure.
But I mean, and I think those are legendary venues, but I think they've sort of changed. Now today, I don't know. It seems like a lot of indie bands still play there though, which is a cool thing. And if you're in LA, they're mostly going to be LA based bands, I think.
Yeah.
There's a few people that come in from elsewhere and stuff like that. But yeah. So Joe Ciccarelli saw them there. He went on to produce their first album, right?
Yeah, they started tracking songs at Sunset Sound Studios right in the neighborhood.
Right, yeah.
And, in LA. And then, basically that's where this first music was coming from. We played My Body.
We did not play that. We played Cough Syrup. Right?
Oh, we played Cough Syrup.
Yeah.
But same project. And
Same
these
album,
songs became that album.
Right.
Their debut, Young the Giant album.
Yeah.
And so, obviously right before that, they changed their name.
Yeah.
Up until this point, they were still the Jakes.
Right.
And they wanted to change their name, I think, just to be more in line with how they felt. Mm-hmm. And like you said, they had a couple more members added to the band who weren't there for part of the Jakes history. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to feel like everybody was included on this new birth, like a rebirth kind of thing. We're signed now.
Yeah. We
have a different lineup. We're working with Joe.
Right.
We got a cool producer. We're making a big album.
Yeah.
Let's change the name and update our vibes.
Yeah.
So they came up with Young the Giant.
Yeah.
And I think they wanted to be creative. And instead of having the in front of the band, like so many other bands, like the Young Giants or something like that.
Okay, right.
They wanted to be different.
Yeah.
And put the in the middle. And they thought they were being very, very, very creative.
Yeah.
And somewhat. But I was watching an interview and they were laughing and they were telling the stories where I heard it. And right around the same time, other bands started coming out with a in the middle.
Okay.
Right in the same time period. Foster the People, Cage the Elephant.
Oh, yeah.
Florence the Machine.
Oh, yeah.
something like that. So there's like, it was a weird
I didn't think about this.
hive
but
mind
Yeah.
thing where other bands started coming out with this style of band name.
Right.
And they were kind of right in the middle, even though they claimed they came up with it themselves.
Independently without influence of these other bands doing this.
I don't think they knew about the other bands doing it.
Right.
As far as I know, the story is it came naturally.
Right. Yeah.
So cool band name, and now we officially have Young the Giant. Their debut album comes out. You know when that dropped? Like 2000, somewhere in 2011 ish.
Yeah, 2010.
2010 or 11.
Discogs has it at. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we already played that. We talked about it a little bit. Just very good debut album.
Yeah.
Good production, good hooks, good songwriting, and they come out. They're really powerful.
Yeah, they said they went old school with it, where they tried to record it all live. But they said they also had to do a lot of chopping. So it's like I think it's like that live vibe that we're trying to capture, but they still did a lot of editing to the tracks and overdubs.
Yeah, I think
like afterwards,
most
kind of thing.
live bands who create something live still get edited a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about like some of like the classic like 90s albums, like a lot of Rage Against the Machine stuff, Nirvana, like they were capturing the essence of the song like live, like playing between each other kind of thing. And then that's the basis of the recording, and then they like overdub some things like the what was the Nirvana album, Nevermind? Like it was recorded that way, I think. And then obviously the vocals takes, the layering and stuff like that, and the guitar layering afterwards. But like getting that like energy of the song, I think, between all the musicians is like something that I think Young the Giant tried to capture on this album.
Right.
Like, and it's a great way of working, because that's the thing, like no matter what you add or take away kind of thing, it's like, how do you capture that certain energy?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's hard to speak about unless you're like intimately familiar with the audio nomenclature and like sound design techniques and stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't know how to talk about it, but it's so interesting how you can capture a live band with that live sound.
Yeah.
And even though everybody knows their parts and you can go to a click and play it the exact same way, it doesn't come across as a live sound if everyone did their parts individually.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I mean, we have this debate about clicks and stuff like that. I don't like them because for me it's the antithesis of emotion and vibe. Like because if like unless you've spent like 10 years playing to a click and you've internalized it and you can forget about it, you can just like you're there, which is very rare. I think there's not many people that are able to do that.
Right.
Like otherwise it's just like it's there and you're conscious about it and you're like trying to stick with it and you're not thinking about the vibe and the emotion, like you're just trying to think about staying in time.
I think for me there's a difference between whether you're like playing music and improvising and figuring it out in the moment. That for me is we don't need a click.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to perform something, you're trying to just give other people, and that's where you're sharing a performance. It helps the entire band work together to create that. Is that's where I'm coming from with click, because it's definitely good sometimes, and it's definitely, harmful. For lack of a better word, harmful to the vibe.
I think for me, like, at the end of the day, it's just about trying to capture the energy and the emotion and the feeling, in a song kind of thing when it's recorded. And that's very hard to do. Like, even though like now we have all of this computer technology that's like makes everything so easy, but it also it doesn't really change trying to capture that. It's very subjective. It's very hard to describe because it's like but it's like the thing about authenticity that a lot of these artists talk about, and Young the Giant talk about as well, is like, if you're not honest and authentic about something, people can tell. Like you can tell as a musician, and the listeners can tell, kind of thing. And it's kind of the same with the vibe of the music in the room, kind of thing. Like if two people are off and they're not putting the emotion into it, you can hear it. Versus like a take where like everyone's just like
locked in.
Yeah, and it's like I hope people get what I'm saying with this, and you get what I'm saying with this, because
No,
it's
totally.
like it's not like really tangible thing to talk about.
It's
but
esoteric.
Like,
it's vibey.
Yeah.
And that's why this stuff is cool to talk about and to explore.
Yeah.
Because it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And professionals would still say they don't know the answer to some of these questions. You know.
Yeah.
That's why people love music.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about them today. Young the Giant.
Yeah.
So let's move on. I mean, they tour after that first album, I believe.
Right.
They just, they're signed to this big label. They send them out on tour.
Yeah.
Just do the full band thing.
Yeah.
And they're living it. They're like, that song was on the radio. I mean, they had 2 or 3 of those singles were like pretty big, and they were on the radio and stuff.
Yeah.
So they were making waves.
Didn't they, like, I don't know if they started out headlining, but they definitely ended up headlining, like, right whilst they were on that tour for this album. They said they did. I heard Signl talk about like the headline circuit or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
For
a new band that's seemingly come out of nowhere. Like
seemingly come out of nowhere, but that's one of the cool things is that they didn't come out of nowhere. They were the Jakes before they were ever Young the Giant. So it's interesting because if you just know Young the Giant, you're like, oh, they started with this debut album just coming out hot, like real good.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that makes them seem even more mysterious and awesome and cool.
Yeah.
But they put in all the work of years and years before being in different bands and being in the Jakes.
Yeah.
Like doing small gigs, battle of the bands, acoustic night type stuff where they, as they say, cut their teeth.
Yeah. And this is a little out of chronological order, but I'll say it now because it relates to exactly what you're saying right now. Is because they were asked about the VMA performance that they did, which I think was a little later in their career, but a lot of press pundits and all that and say that was a turning point for them to like becoming bigger as a band, because VMAs is pretty big. It's like it's exposure to a lot more people kind of thing, and they themselves said they didn't see it that way because they'd been like working at this for years kind of thing, and so for them it was just like it was another part of their story. It wasn't like something big, and I think this kind of like leads into their outlook as well. Is like they say they don't really look to like success, but they look to the opportunities and things that come their way. They accept it and they take advantage of it and they do it kind of thing. They didn't say take advantage of it. But the opportunity comes their way, they're going to put their all into it. I think.
No, I think take advantage is okay to say.
You're right.
There's a couple different contexts you could use.
Make the most of it.
But
and so that was the thing, like the VMAs and all of these things that happen is like, they've been grafting for years and years and years, kind of a lot of it in obscurity, a lot of it in semi-obscurity, and now they're getting some recognition kind of thing. And they just see it like the snowball thing they talked about early on. It's all snowballed, and it's all been a natural evolution and progression that's come about because of all of the hard work that they've put in.
Right.
And a lot of that hard work, it seems that they talk about as the touring thing. Like they really, it's another band that is just like, tour. Like, and, when they're asked different questions, even stuff like, how have you been able to stick it out this long, or how are you able to keep writing music?
Yeah, and remain friends.
They cite touring as the thing, because it's like, if you're playing the same songs over and over again in multiple cities, night after night, and coming back to the same cities and doing it again kind of thing. It's like that they've talked about this as them, forming that bond, but also being really getting better as musicians from doing that. So this is the crazy thing about touring. It's like it's hard work, little money, maybe bad lodging and bad food and stuff like that. But you get way better at music and you start to grow that fan base. And that's really like, obviously the music has to be really good to start with. And they have these anthemic tunes, these sing-along tunes that people can like catch their ear on and to like start singing along to kind of thing. And, if they didn't have that, I still think like hard graft on the road works, but like the fact that their music is like this sort of anthemic thing as well is like, it's just complementing each other, right? All of these different aspects sort of thing. Like,
it's a ladder.
Yeah.
And no one's ever going to put you on a big Lollapalooza stage or something if you don't have a song to play.
Right.
If you have no music, so it's just you have to start with good music.
Yeah.
That's where it always starts if you want to do anything in the music industry.
Yeah.
Something that people can connect to.
Yeah.
And then you can go on to the next level, and that's like touring for a lot of bands, like for the first time going on big tours throughout the year and presenting their music and sharing it to the world. And it's really hard work from what we learn on this podcast.
Yeah.
But it seems very worthwhile.
Yeah.
Like you said, you benefit yourself and the others around you.
Yeah.
So no, I love that take that you just dropped on us, Jay.
Yeah, I know. It's one of the things I get. You know, it's funny when you do research, like, because I'm like, you consuming different things, but even though you're consuming different things from different years that they've said, there's like recurring themes that these artists talk about, which is really interesting to me. And it's like, I think trying to like distill those, because that's like seems to be where they're at. Like if they keep mentioning these things over the years, it's like that's got to be the thing that like
one of the consistent things that they find, and we could use that.
Yeah.
We could take advantage.
Yeah.
So they're killing it. So then they start working on their second full-length album in the summer of 2013.
Yeah.
And a different producer is on this one, guy named Justin Meldal Johnson.
Okay.
Hope I'm pronouncing that right as always.
Right.
They were working on an album called Home of the Strange. Is that right?
Mind Over Matter.
Yeah, I
was the
skipped that
second
one.
album.
The second album, Mind Over Matter. My bad, everybody.
Yeah.
And that dropped in 2013 or 2014.
2014.
One of those.
Yeah.
So
Different label. So I'm not sure what happened there. Why did Roadrunner Records not release this? I don't know.
I don't
Story
know
behind this.
I didn't get the story either.
Yeah.
If you guys know or know a little tidbit, let us know.
Said it was released by Fueled by Ramen, which is a great title for anything.
Yeah.
Fueled by Ramen.
That should have been their band name or their album title.
Yeah.
But Mind Over Matter comes out, basically.
Yeah.
And I think they really hit a home run with this. They
Yeah.
had a big song called Mind Over Matters on there. What else did they have on there? I don't have my notes, so I won't go into it.
Well, it was funny because like they'd done so much touring. I mean, it's 4 years since the first album, so it was a lot of years of touring. And they said when they got off tour, the label was like, "Oh, do you have an album?" And they were like, "No, we haven't written anything. We've just been touring."
Oh no, that's right. And they were like, "So you guys got some material, right?
Yeah.
Where is it? Let's hear it."
I don't know what label because I don't know why it was released on a different label. So that's did they drop them? They were like, "You haven't written any material. We just sent you on the road for 4 years. What do you mean you haven't written?
What have you been doing?"
Exactly. So they had that sort of like, okay, second album.
Oh yeah, we have to
trauma.
keep writing music.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think that was a good lesson for them because they've said since then they've made a point to continue writing music continuously.
Just kind of added that to the routine of touring.
Yeah, even if they're on the road, they make a point to be like generating new ideas, even if it's not finished. Just like demo, record it on your phone. I don't know if they do this specifically, but I'm imagining they do now, just to like get ideas down and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that the way they sort of talked about the first three albums is like the first one, they said they were just trying to tell their own story, their own narrative, because they're an American band, but they have a lot of like the immigrant story,
Right, the different world perspective.
Yeah, I think at least 2 or 3 of the members have Indian heritage. Jacob is from the UK, but still technically an immigrant, right? Into the States. So they said the first album was really like trying to tell their own story and their own narrative, but they didn't know how it was going to be received because they didn't really have like that big, large listener base, And they said the second album was more about them just trying to get the second album done, and the process of that. And then by the time they went to their third album, they said that they know now that they have like listeners out there, and how what they say will be like how it will resonate with their audience.
Like people are listening at this point; they know it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it was really. I know we're not at the third album yet, but I thought that was like an interesting, like sort of take on how they were putting stuff out. But Mind Over Matter for me was like, certified banger of an album. I think
Yes, it's very strong.
It's really strong from beginning to end.
It's clean production.
Yeah,
a lot going on. Just really deep production.
Yeah,
good melodies, good hooks.
Yeah,
good songwriting in general. It's just it really is a banger of an album.
Definitely. Yeah.
Let's get into it. Let's play a track off it.
Yeah. Anagram.
Okay. Anagram.
Or do you want to play Eros?
I go here. Let's go Eros.
All right.
I don't know how to say it either.
Not Euro, not gyros.
Not a euro. Oh, I'm getting hungry.
Eros. Okay.
Why won't you call me? Just give me your mouth. Won't you be straight with me? I can be older. Just give me the chance. I will win it all. Can you control this sea and night? To take cover, relax your lips. Long blonde hair, I don't know if you're even there. I never let go. I let the flames go. Don't call it quits. Cold heart stay, I won't go in. You're standing there. I never let go. I let the flames. I'm really sorry, but I will win. Unintentionally, you can be sober, but I wanna dance, and I'm not dancing alone. Can you control this sea and night? Would you patrol with yellow lights? Relax your lips. Long blonde hair, I don't know if you're even there. I never let go. I let the flames go. Don't call it quits. Cold heart stay, I won't go in. You're standing there. I never let go. I let the flames. Nobody waits, nobody calls anymore. Talking is dead with these fake conversations. Tired nations. Nobody cares, too many thoughts at the door. It's all in your head, 'cause these days I'm awakened. I've been shaken. Here I am. Here I am. I've been blind. Here I
That was Eros from Young the Giant from their 2014 album, Mind Over Matter.
Yeah, Eros, apparently the Greek god of erotic love.
There you go. Yeah. I knew it was a Greek god of some kind, but I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, then now we know.
Greek god of love.
Erotic love.
Oh,
Jay.
erotic love. Stop giving me those eyes, man. You're making me uncomfortable. Yeah, and Justin, the producer, what was his? Well, he has a lot complicated last name.
Meldal Johnson.
Okay. I haven't really heard of him, but I heard the guys talking about working with him, saying how it was like the guys from Young the Giant had all these ideas, like about how they wanted certain things to sound, but didn't know how to do it. And Justin was like, "Oh yeah, you just slap a plate reverb on here and it's delay and all that kind of thing," and he like kind of knew how to do it. And I think that was really good that they were able to explain what they wanted, and he knew what they wanted and knew how to do it, and also showed them as well. He wasn't like keep guarding this stuff as like trade secrets. He was,
like gatekeeping, like,
yeah,
let's step out the studio while I put this reverb
exactly,
on. Like,
yeah. They were actually there and witnessing like the plugins he was using and stuff like that. They mentioned stuff like Bit Crusher as well. I still don't even know what a Bit Crusher does, but they mentioned it as being like a cool thing.
I think it just makes stuff sound worse. It's like shitty.
Does it? Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I'm just kind of joking, but I think
Yeah.
I have an error of what it does.
It's like a digital compression, I think, something like that. It's like
or it makes
literally crushing.
It sounds like it's on tape.
Oh, okay.
So it gives it kind of, I don't know, something like that though. It gives it like a little bit of a different
Right. Yeah.
contextual or texture, I guess.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't really know what I'm talking about as far as that last few sentences go. I'm just going off a feeling, you guys. But I think I wanted to play that track because it's a really good example of the production and the intricacy and how delicate it is.
Yeah.
Like there's just like a little synth jabs in there tucked away.
Yeah.
Guitar parts on either end of the spectrum. Not playing a lot sometimes, but really sparsely, but all working in conjunction with each other.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
So very cool. Let's move on though. Then their next album's Home of the Strange.
Right.
As far as I know, they just kind of keep going with this touring cycle.
Yeah.
And they're just really being a really great band.
Yeah.
Having a good album, touring, doing the press.
Yeah.
And they just keep building what they're building and exploring.
Yeah.
And, that's what I think is cool. It's not like they're not doing a lot of different stuff. They don't have a lot of features on their music. They don't go on other people's albums a lot.
Yeah.
They're just really like in-house building something great.
Yeah.
But while they go along the way, they're exploring, and I feel like they're on an adventure, like discovering who they are and what their purpose is and what the point of them being in a band is.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool.
And literally in-house as well, because I don't know if we said this, but like I think the first definitely the first two albums, maybe the third album, they all lived together in a house, in several houses around California, LA. And that they sort of cited that as being really important in their early years to sort of get on the same page, like musically and with each other, kind of thing. They're also asked those, is that hard to like, there's the whole concept of not taking work home, kind of thing. And Samir was like, well, being in a band anyway is not a normal job. You kind of, if you're in that's kind of your lifestyle. That's how you live anyway.
Right.
But he said it was kind of challenging at times for them because there's no off switch, right? It's like they literally could go into the studio at 2 a.m. and lay something down if they wanted to, but sometimes they weren't feeling it, kind of thing. But all of that said, obviously there's pros and cons to doing that, and I think as they've gotten older, they're like, older with like, we don't need to live together and we're not college years anymore.
Yeah.
They have girlfriends, and some of them I think have wives now and that.
You don't want to share bunks with me anymore?
Exactly, yeah. You don't want to clean the toilet because it's your turn. No. But yeah, but being in the houses, and I think even if they don't live together now, they still kind of make a purpose of, I think they've even built a studio in a house, and it's a place now where any band member can go to at any time and lay down ideas. Is the way they've said it.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's an amazing space.
Yeah, and but they've lived in different places, and one of them was like more secluded, I think, than the others, and they said they like really isolated themselves. I think for this third album, whereas basically they said they didn't see anyone other than family and loved ones or anyone that would come to the house and visit them because the house was kind of like far away from anything else, kind of thing.
Right.
But that's like the environment that they've had to sort of try and, well, not had to, but they've ended up creating for themselves in order to make this music. And, it definitely works. I feel like I can really hear it in the music, the way it all gels together, kind of thing. Like it seems very, like it comes from a honest place, not like, you know, oh, Joe's in here today and he's gonna like overdub his guitar parts. You know, it's like, sorry, there's no Joe in the band, but I'm just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Joe Schmo.
Joe Schmo, yeah. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting.
No, 100%.
Yeah,
I think it's very valuable. Like taking the time to create that space for your creativity instead of just dealing with what you have. Like if you're able to create a space that's separate and isolated, it could be invaluable for your creation.
Yes, basically, I think Jacob said that about the need to create that environment for yourself to write music.
Yeah, it's almost necessary.
Yeah,
it could be anything though. It could be a cabin. It could be your apartment.
Whatever works. But
having that space that's dedicated. Yeah, whatever works for you works.
Yeah, because they're like, he said that there are times where the songwriting flows and it's good, and there are times when it doesn't. And he said, if you're tired or not inspired and you're trying to make something, he said it's like it's the perfect time to not do it. Like don't. He said if you're trying to force something and chase for something, then it's not going to happen, kind of thing. Basically, you kind of have to. It has to be like naturally working, or don't try, because otherwise, I think his perspective is that you're just kind of forcing things, and it's too. I guess you get too in your head. He didn't say this, but I'm sort of extrapolating that kind of thought out of this as well. If you're trying too hard, then you're less in the flow, and you're more analytical about what you're trying to do,
and that lines up with kind of mindset stuff like manifestation. Spiritual people talk about like if you're trying to attract something into your life, you don't want to just completely focus on it. Like you want to, like if you think too much about something, it's going to be harder to get. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we forgot to say that about the Mind Over Matter album as well, like the title. I think they were asked about that.
Yeah.
And I think the way they said that is that they were thinking too much and about, because also another part of this as well, they said they like to try and evolve. Like they don't want to do the same thing from album to album.
Right.
They're sort of trying to do a lot of different things. They're trying to evolve, experiment, not be the same, but they're also trying to be authentic about it, and trying to strive for a unique sound. I think Samir said like they want to get to a point where you hear their music and it's like, oh, it's Young the Giant. It doesn't sound like any other band. It's like definitely them kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, while striving for these things, I think you can get stuck in like a headspace that's not really working, and that's why they came up with Mind Over Matter as a title, because it was out of all the titles they had, it stuck because it's like, yeah, that's really what we have to do. We have to try to break through any sort of blocks, mental notions that we're putting in place, and
totally
really get through that. So
it all starts up here.
Yeah. Ideas, but then you have to like translate that into make it feeling.
That's where the human part comes in, because
yeah.
You could be as spiritual as you want, and you could live in that spiritual world, but I think it's like we're humans right now, and we can affect change and help other humans right now with our bodies, and sometimes you got to have a strong mind to control your body and have control over that personal agency, how you want to use your energy and where you want to put that energy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good stuff. And I think these guys, they think about this stuff, I mean, obviously in the, title of their album, Mind Over Matter, like they're obviously thinking about this stuff, looking into themselves and being like, who am I? What should I do? And why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So it's a very cool group.
Yeah, definitely.
Again.
Yeah.
So Home of the Strange comes out, and like you said, they're kind of coming into themselves as songwriters, and like, what's our place? What's our statement? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
As far as the lyrics and vibe of the music goes.
Yeah.
And so also on this album, you can tell from the album cover, there's like some mountains right in the middle, and there's like some people all around with like different flags. I think they're fake flags just for the art. But it's just very reminiscent that they're looking around, and all these different people in this album cover are from different places. And I'm not sure exactly what it represents as far as the mountains go. But it does get across the idea that they're exploring something with different culture or perspective.
Yeah.
I think it lines up.
Yeah, I think
Maybe that's just me.
no, yeah, they were saying apparently as well that they kind of sensed like a tension and like student campuses, like when they were playing shows and that like that, which I'm not exactly sure what they meant by that, but like I think like racial tensions or like I think it was a strange period. Like this came out 2016. That was like
That's right
when Trump got elected. Was it 2016?
That's true.
And yeah, I think they were just, and also, like I said, it's the third album and they realize they have like an audience now kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to emphasize where they're coming from, like their immigrant story kind of thing and what all of that entails,
right,
being in America as well and being an American band. And I think like lyrically that was like thematically what they were trying to sort of explore in that.
Yeah, right.
And they said it was interesting because like when they've played shows, like they said some of the most conservative states in America, the audiences receive their music the best. Like they would think it would be the other way around, but like they've noticed that in some of those like more conservative states is where people are like more engaged in the music and singing along, sort of thing.
Interesting.
Their theory on that was like, well, maybe because this is a group of like-minded people that like our music and they're not being heard by anyone else, so it's kind of like a mutual sort of exchange of like those ideas, I guess. For those people going to see a Young the Giant show and sharing in that perspective, like lyrically and sing, because they're so anthemic that it's like it's really easy to sing along to like their tracks, even if you want to or not. Like you'll be like everyone else is there doing it. You'll be like, like
it's catchy. Their music's vibey and it brings people together.
Yeah,
100%.
So,
but so they're truly offering their perspective as people. Like they're really like, okay, we're Young the Giant. Here's where we come from. Here's our true story.
Yeah.
And we opened up this podcast with a track called "Something to Believe In."
Yeah.
And that's the second track off of this album.
Right.
So absolute banger of a track. It was huge. It was on the radio and stuff.
Yeah.
Very good. And all right, let me see. I have a couple notes on this. Yeah, their perspective, their story, their American identity, and it's just a good collection of songs that, ruminates on the group's immigrant history.
Right.
So I mean, you basically already touched on all of that. So, but very good album.
Yeah.
Again, they keep doing it.
Again.
So then, again, more touring, more writing.
Yes.
Mirror Master comes out.
Yeah.
And so this is another good album. I mean, I really, it as I was going through listening to all this stuff I had 2 weeks to listen to it because we didn't do that episode that one day.
Yeah. I've been listening to They Might Be Giants for 2 weeks now. I'm just saying.
But this Mirror Master came out in 2018. And it's, I think this is a great morning time album.
Really?
Yeah. I started listening to it in the morning and it's perfect for the morning time.
This is like the only album that I didn't listen to. In my 2 weeks of listening, I listened to everything else, but I didn't get to this album yet. So,
well, it's a little bit more low key from their first three albums, I would think. Like the production value is still very high. The songwriting is still very high. The musicianship is there. Yeah. But the style is a little bit more subdued and indie rather than amphetic and like heavy guitars and huge, climax songs.
Cool.
It's a little bit more chill.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's really good for the morning. Just really beautiful.
Yeah.
All the way through. Yeah. I do highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's basically all I got on it. I think it's really good though.
Yeah.
Let's just keep moving on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have a track from that, but we might end on that one. Superposition. But we might play out on that one. Like, I don't know.
Now I'm confused. What should we do? We'll play out on that. Let's wrap this bad boy up.
Yeah.
But that's a great album. Mm-hmm. And then the only thing that we have to talk about is their final album that came out in 2022. Is that right? It just dropped.
Yeah, Act 1 and 2. I don't know much about it other than it being out. yeah, like you said, was it 2 EPs or they released them?
I think that's
1 and 2,
as far as I understand. They released Act 1, which is like 4 songs, and then Act 2 they released separately as like another 4-track EP.
Right.
And then they combined those together. I think they went into this project for this last album, Act 1 and 2, knowing how they wanted to organize that.
Right.
I don't think it was like by chance they just made 4 songs and said, let's stick them together.
They did it purposefully.
I think they did it purposefully,
Okay.
which is a cool way to release.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit unique to me, at least.
Well, I know a long time ago we talked about that band Dirty Projectors, and they had a whole lineup change, and then for their new releases, I think there were like 4 members, and they released 4 different EPs that were like kind of like the perspective of each member, and they were like sort of different, like music, and one of them was like more Brazilian sounding or something.
The same songs, though?
Different songs, yeah.
Okay.
So, but they were like more, the way they released them, it was like kind of from the perspective of that member. So it's not only just a way of them like introducing new band members, but like a new direction and a new perspective. Instead of doing 1 album, they did like 4 EPs, and then they're gonna come out with an album, I think, you know. But it's a very
That is cool.
purposeful way of releasing music and thinking about narrative and thinking about things.
Yeah,
And
doing
that
it,
way, yeah.
putting these releases out and sharing the music with intention.
Yeah.
Not just, I made this, there it is.
And that's something Young the Giant talk about a lot, or at least Samir does, narrative. Like, I've heard him say that, drop that word multiple times over multiple interviews, narrative. And their story, you know, and the narrative of their story. That's like a recurring theme that they talk about, kind of thing.
Right.
So it's very present.
Same with us. That's why we respect narrative here on Roots
Yeah.
to Grooves podcast. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the reasons. I think Young the Giant's a great Roots to Grooves, you know, pick.
Yeah.
For
that,
it just really lines up with our mindset and perspective, and they really respect the same things we respect.
Yeah.
So yeah, very cool. Act 1 and 2 is very good. I'm less familiar with this album, so I still have to give it some more listens to really understand it.
Yeah.
Kind of like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
It does seem a little less anthemic, a little bit more, again, kind of chill. And I don't really have a strong vibe in a way to characterize it to us in this conversation today.
Yeah.
But I think it's very high quality music.
It's still definitely solid. I think, like, even though they talk about evolving and doing different things from album to album, and sometimes they've even talked about pulling from 5 or 10 different genres, like, because they're all listening to different types of music and bringing that to the table.
Right.
Still, even though they say all that stuff, it still sounds like solid. Like, you know, like we say usually, like, oh, we start with this album, you know, it's like a listening tip.
Yeah.
But I really feel like with them, you know, well, I would say definitely check out Mind Over Matter.
That's your album.
But really, any album, you know, I think the more anthemic ones are on the first 2, and then and less on the last 2.
Agree.
But still, it's like they're not straying any further or outside of their realm.
It's not a complete switch up in any way.
No.
It still sounds like Young the Giant.
Yeah.
And that's what's impressive about it.
Yeah.
And so that consistency is great.
Yeah.
Because they're doing something a little bit different, but with their same heart
Right.
and soul.
And I have like one more interesting thing I wanted to say that I found out about the songwriting process that they're talking about. Apparently they all really like Tom Petty. Like, there's a big influence on them. I don't know too much about him, unfortunately. I know he's massive. I know he's very influential, but I haven't really heard much of his music. I haven't really sort of come up listening to music from the Tom Petty angle kind of thing.
Yeah.
But one thing they observed about him was that after they sort of analyzed his music, you know, playing covers and figuring it out, is that he has some very like big memorable songs, but they're actually really simple. He said that he'll use like 3 or 4 chords and like that's it, simple arrangements. But the one key thing that they took away from him is his use of melody. So even though he's only using 3 or 4 chords, he's using melody to like string all of that together, kind of thing. And I think that's something that they seem to have really, I think that's how they're being so anthemic, because I think they're sort of taking that notion of like the chords don't have to be crazy; they can be simple. And they said like sometimes Samir even said this, like sometimes arrangements can be a mathematical problem or an issue, but like some of the best songs have the most simple arrangements, and it's about keeping things simple. Restraint is what they said. It's like sometimes the hardest thing is to use restraint in songwriting for them. But yeah, that really resonated with me in an interesting way. It's like, okay, yeah, because we only have so many chords in the world, but if you can string a unique melody over the top of it, that's what really gives it like a song a unique kind of thing. You know,
100%.
sound and all that, yeah.
And a lot of people say the vocals are, I mean, such a varied instrument. Like you can make vocals sound all kinds of different ways, obviously.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I haven't said, but Samir has a really great voice.
He does.
You know, it's very strong, but it's very tender.
Yeah.
Or it can be at least.
Yeah.
And it's pretty dynamic, a nice dynamic range, and he does go up pretty high and he goes pretty low.
Yeah, definitely.
So he's really expressive, and it's really good.
And the melodies he's using are really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's that's the best way to say it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It reminded me, I don't know if you've heard of this band, Elbow. I think I mentioned them a few times, but
No, maybe you did. Maybe I feel that. Yeah.
might be a good pick at some point because it reminded me the Guy Garvey. Guy Garvey is the singer from Elbow. Samir reminds me a little bit of his voice, kind of thing.
Nice.
So I think I might listen to a few tracks and see if it's an artist that we should cover, because I think if you like Young the Giant, Elbow is like a different kind of like kind of different music. It's still indie, alternative, but they're a lot more spacious in their music. Elbow, like a little more calm and down tempo and melodic kind of sort of music. But anyway,
Okay.
I got those vibes just listening to Young the Giant, and his vocals, Samir's vocals, reminded me of Elbow. So yeah.
Nice. I don't know anything about Elbow, but I have two of them.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's all I know. Hopefully by the end of the day. But that's Young the Giant, y'all.
Yeah,
That's all I got on him. We got anything else?
that's all I had.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Very cool band. You heard Jay. Start with Mirror Master.
That's not what I said.
I thought that's what you said.
Mind over matter.
Oh no. Okay, you're right. The M's and the alliteration.
Yeah, I know,
got me.
yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Totally.
Mind over matter. That's what I meant to say.
I mean, literally, the first albums are really good as well. Like, I was listening to the remastered version. I'm not really sure what the difference is in that, other than did they tweak the mix or something? I don't know, but like,
just to maybe a little.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying when they do that. And also in the age of streaming, it's like, why? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because they don't release it as a new album. They just change the album that was released 10 years ago.
Yeah, they like remaster it, and then they'll put like extra tracks on. I think there's like a third version there's like 3 versions of their debut album. Like one's remastered, one's the original, and then one is a special edition that has extra tracks, I think.
Nice.
So it's
Right
very
on.
confusing.
Well, if you guys can help us not be confused about Young the Giant, you got tips, tricks, advice for life or mindset, let us know. You can hit us up at the email. Jay's got it for us.
Roots to Grooves at signalradio.com, SIGNL radio.com.
I don't believe in fate, no psychic vision. But when things fall into place, superposition. In any universe, you are my dark star. I want you to want me. What mission aims with imprecision. But when things can't be explained, superposition. No matter what we do, I'll be there with you.
Roots to Grooves is a production of Signl Radio. For more music and independent culture, visit signalradio.com. That's signl radio.com.